morning, all. For those of you who have not joined us before, our team has hosted these Call for Community Solutions since March of 2020 to provide nonprofits with critical resources and updates, a shared space to discuss challenges, a snapshot of relevant policies, and timely insight from subject matter experts. Since that time, the Forbes Funds and GPNP have hosted 5,692 meetings with the participation of over 48,806 dedicated community members. We do all of this utilizing a dual framework that draws on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the social determinants of health to align cross-sector and guide the outcomes of our work. Additionally, the 8 returns model guides how we measure the success or returns on various forms of investment. For today's call, we encourage you to go ahead and use the chat function to share your name and your organization out with the group, as well as any comments or questions you might have during today's call. We also strongly encourage you to join us on screen to maximize engagement. We'll reserve time for a Q&A after our speaker presentation, followed by Forbes Funds GPMP ecosystem updates and a public policy recap from our GPMP director, Emily Francis. And as a friendly reminder, there will be a poll at the end of the call. Please be sure to complete that so we can keep our content and resources relevant to you. So today we have the pleasure of hearing from Naomi Tannenbaum and Alyse Alexander from Public Allies. They're going to talk with us today about the Public Allies Apprenticeships and how they can help your nonprofit build capacity in these tumultuous times. Naomi is a seasoned nonprofit executive, adept at developing organizational strategies, teams and initiatives for social change. Her career, which spans over 2 decades, is marked by her dedication to community-driven, equitable progress and her ability to navigate and lead through complex challenges. Naomi believes that in order to create truly community-driven, equitable progress, we need leaders who bring diverse experiences to the table and new asset-based approaches. Naomi has worked on an international, national, and local level to develop strategic partnerships, fundraise, create systems for organizational success, turn around struggling programs, and ensure operational and financial accountability. Naomi is a trained cultural anthropologist with certificates in conflict resolution, performance management, and coaching. She holds graduate degrees from the University of Virginia and a BA from American University, and she incorporates her personal values of creativity, curiosity, and exploring difference into her work, family, and community life. Thanks so much for being with us. We also have Alyse Alexander, who is a mission-driven leader with over 12 years of experience advancing social justice through education, advocacy, and community partnership. She's directed programs across schools, nonprofits, and businesses with a focus on racial equity, policy reform, and capacity building. A certified courageous conversations about race practitioner, Alyse has facilitated impactful professional development through the Pittsburgh Public School District. With a background in social counseling, she brings expertise in mental health, behavior management, restorative practices, and strategic leadership. Alyse holds an MED from Duquesne University and a BA from Spelman College. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here with us today. I'm going to check real quick if we do have Fred on with us. Fred, would you like to take a word before I hand it over?
Morning, all. Great to see everybody on this morning. And we're here about Public Allies vision as we move forward in times of uncertainty. We've benefited from Public Allies for many years, and we find the work of that sector incredibly important as we build back office supports for organizations through the struggles and stripes that exist within our current ecosystem. And so I'm interested to hear today how Public Allies has evolved as a result of the ecosystems we now confront. And moreover, how do we support strategic alignments using assets within our ecosystem, given the stress and shock that we're confronting on a daily basis? So thank you all for being on. We're excited to listen and learn, but more importantly, as many of you guys know that are on these calls on Monday, knowledge without action is not relevant. So as we learn things, our job as practitioners are to act, to test and verify the validity of the things we're being exposed to. So I would hope that at the conclusion of the day's activities, all of us test and verify the process by which Public Allies functions and also how they see their work evolving as a result of the changing climate. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Fred. I'm going to pass it on over to Naomi and Alyse. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get started.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Fred, for those kind words and great introduction. We are going to talk a little bit about some new initiatives that we are going to be starting, as well as our flagship program that we have run here in Pittsburgh since 2006. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, Alyse, for running the PowerPoint. I'm going to start us off and then Alyse will chime in at the end of the presentation. And if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm not always great at reading while I'm presenting, but we will get to them by the end, I promise. So let's go ahead and get started. Alyse, if you could move it to the next slide. So as I mentioned, Public Allies has been serving Pittsburgh since 2006, so over 18 years now, and we are a part of a national organization that has been around since 1992. We relaunched Public Allies here in Pittsburgh last July as a standalone site. And what that means is we are now a part of the corporate structure of Public Allies as a national organization. And it means that we have the opportunity to position ourselves for new initiatives and to look at ways we can specifically serve and work with Pittsburgh and the region to make sure capacity needs are met and to make sure we have the new leadership that is needed in these times, especially. We will talk about that a little later on in the presentation, but I did want to focus first off on our flagship program, which is our apprenticeship for the social impact sector. And part of the goals of that apprenticeship is to be really the premier pipeline for local talent into the sector. And that talent, we want talent that is proximate or a part of the communities that are served by many nonprofits. And that's who we recruit into our programs. People who have that lived experience and that passion and desire to work in community. And those apprenticeships we call them that specifically because they are a hands-on experience with all of you as nonprofits and as civic sector organizations here. They are meant to build your capacity and your ability to meet your mission and serve communities in the region. So that's a quick overview of who Public Allies is. I'd like to do a little bit of a reflection for a second. Alyse, yeah. So raise your hand if you work in an organization that doesn't have the staff or the time to do all of the things that you want to do. Because I think I have not met a nonprofit that doesn't have have initiatives, have projects that they'd really want to get to when they have the time. And so I'd like you to take a minute to think about some of those projects, because that's what Public Allies does. We boost your capacity by placing an ally with you to do the things that can be backburnered or in your parking lot. And allies work in all aspects of capacity building, and capacity building is really like a fancy term. And I'm sure all of you on this call know this because you're associated with the Forbes Funds and GPMP, but it's really all of the things that help you do the work, the direct service in community that is so vital to the region. So Public Allies work in outreach and communications, partnerships, volunteer engagement, program enhancement and expansion, staff development, finances, monitoring and evaluation, basically all of the places except for fundraising, and we can talk about that if anyone has questions. But we work in all of the places that help you do what you do in community and help you do it more and help you do it better. So think about some of those projects as we go along, and I'm going to start off just by talking about some more specifically what it is that allies do. Oops, I'm gonna get to my notes here. So through the years, we've worked with over 150 organizations in the region. And the slide lists some of the general areas where allies work. Many allies recently are working in outreach and communications. We found that that's an area where many nonprofits need more support. And so that's what allies do. Allies also have work in evaluation, organizing databases, creating evaluation tools, data crunching, some of those pieces of work. Allies have created curriculum. They do program enhancements, such as expanding into new neighborhoods or developing partnerships for new recipients or creating new initiatives. And many allies work with volunteers. So training volunteers, managing them, doing outreach for volunteers. So all of these are places where allies, all of these are areas where allies can do work. Move to the next slide. And I wanted to put in here because I did a little bit of an exercise where I took 1 year of programming and all of the outputs that we have from allies. And I put just some select few examples of the outputs from a class of allies for the region. And I'm highlighting them here because I was pretty impressed when I saw this. And there's like 20 more that aren't on the slide. But also because one of the things we do, Fred mentioned test and verify. One of the things that we do is we work with you to set up measurable outputs and outcomes for your allies and measure them throughout the year. So we'll track them. We have an entire system that will monitor and make sure that allies are successful at your placement. So these are just a few of the outputs from 1 year around the different areas where allies work. And then I also wanted to include a few specific examples of what allies accomplish for nonprofits. The idea is that an ally will serve with you, and Alyse is going to talk about this, but an ally will serve with you for 10 months. And once they are finished their service, we want something to be left behind for you to use as a nonprofit for forever, for however long it makes sense for you. So it's something tangible that's continuing beyond the service year. And so these are a few things that allies have done. I will point out one on here because I know it's near and dear to the Forbes funds is we have had an ally this year that has worked specifically on building organizational capacity around AI. So looking at different departments within the organization and how they could use AI to be more efficient and meet their needs, and then also training staff and partners on AI as well. We also this year have an ally that is focusing on storytelling. I've been seeing a lot around storytelling lately. It's having a moment and I love it. And we do have an ally that is doing, I believe it's 50 or more interviews with constituents, managing the database, looking at patterns from those interviews, analyzing them to help with outreach and evaluation for that organization. We have another ally that is has developed a kind of created a food service plan and is implementing that for an organization that does out of school time. This organization works with hundreds of youth and they have to feed them. And so this ally has both developed partnerships to make sure the food is healthy, it's locally sourced, and is something that the kids will actually eat. So it's set up an entire new program within that organization. So those are a couple of the things that, allies are doing this year and historically what allies do for the social impact sector. And then lastly, we do get some pretty good results for our nonprofits. In our end of year surveys, you can see that the nonprofits report that the organization is better positioned to meet their mission, to carry out their mission, and that allies do meet their service goals or exceed their service goals and expectations. Many of our partners do hire on their ally after their term of service. I will note that, Brianna Stadler is an ally alum. She was a 2-year ally and is now at the Forbes Funds. I know she's not here today, but you can mention that to her the next time you talk with her. We also have nonprofits that return year after year to have an ally or multiple allies to support them in your work. And I will just mention that we do have an option for an ally to stay 2 years if that's something your organization might be interested in. But we've been here 18 years. We have had nonprofits that come back for most of those 18 years to have allies do a variety of things with their organization. So keep us in mind and think about something that you might want an ally to do with your nonprofit. And I'm going to turn it over to Alyse to talk about some more specifics of our program. And I will mention that this year we are going to be piloting, not most of our allies are full-time. So they serve your nonprofit 4+ days a week. We are piloting a part-time program that Alyse will talk about as well.
Thank you, Naomi. So who are our allies? Our allies are proximate leaders committed to serving Pittsburgh, right? These are change makers who are really rooted in and reflective of the community that they serve. We have some really fantastic candidates with incredible experience and interest. Some including, we have a candidate who is interested in health services and has experience as a public health ambassador, and where they have provided workshops and seminars on critical health issues within their community. We have another candidate who has experience in museum services, so working with local artists to curate exhibitions. We have a candidate who is really passionate about environmental sustainability. This just really shows that we have a diverse pool of applicants with a wide range of backgrounds and passions. And they each really bring unique strengths that would serve as a really valuable asset and a meaningful support to any nonprofit organization. And so to talk a little bit about our program model, the Public Allies experience is grounded in hands-on service-based learning. And so our allies serve 32 to 35 hours per week full-time. And for the part-time option that Naomi mentioned, those allies would serve 13 to 15 hours at a local nonprofit, which while also collaborating on a team-based community project. Excuse me. They're not just helping day to day, they're leading capacity building efforts that really leave a lasting impact on their host organization. And so what's really unique about Public Allies leadership development model is that it is rooted in experiential learning, it's rooted in leadership development, and a commitment to community engagement. So in addition to service, our allies participate in regular training sessions and retreats that really focus on leadership development and key professional skills that will equip them to grow personally and to contribute meaningfully to the sector. So a little bit about the ally impact. Public Allies has a strong and growing presence both locally and nationally, with 256 alumni here in Pittsburgh and over 10,000 across the country. And so what's powerful about this is that this network stays committed, right? So 74% of our alumni continue to work in the nonprofit sector. Our impact really goes beyond placement. 90% of graduating allies demonstrate meaningful growth in their leadership abilities. And within just 90 days of completing the program, 100% are on a clear career or education pathway. And importantly, 96% of our alumni say that Public Allies prepared them well for their future goals. And so our program really equips them with practical skills and knowledge that are applicable across a wide range of professional settings. And so as far as partnering with Public Allies, partnering with us offers a flexible short-term staffing solution without the need to make a permanent hire. It's really a great way to bring in capacity while maintaining flexibility. And you get to select the ally who aligns best with your organization's mission and needs. And really, you get to ensure that it's a strong fit from the start. We handle all of the heavy lifting. So we do the recruitment, we do the background checks, we do the payroll benefits, all those sort of HR things. And we also provide training so that you can focus on the work that matters at your organization. Our allies do receive a living stipend, and so we do ask our partners to contribute a portion of the ally stipend at 21,000 for our full-time allies and 7,500 for our part-time allies, which again makes it, a cost-effective way to build capacity for the organization. And also, as a bonus, you join a powerful network of mission-driven organizations that are committed to leadership development, through public allies. And so, as Naomi had mentioned previously, some of the ways that our allies support capacity building projects or initiatives at nonprofits really include volunteer management and development, program support and coordination, community engagement, collaboration, data management, and even social media and communications. Those are some of the ways that our allies can support capacity building at your organization. And so we would love for you to join us. Naomi is going to put a link to our partner application in the chat. We are asking that our applications are in by August 4th if you are interested in hosting an ally. If you know someone who's interested in becoming an ally, we're asking for applications by July 31st, and the link for that will be posted as well. It's publicallies.org/be-an-ally. We'd love to have you come on board.
Thanks, Alyse.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah, and happy to answer questions. I will just add, we are, as Alyse and I mentioned, we are piloting a part-time program this fall, and the idea behind that part-time program is to be more inclusive in who can be involved with public allies. So if someone is in school part-time or has a part-time job that they don't want to give up, they can also be an ally, and it's also more inclusive for smaller organizations that may not be able to afford or have staff capacity to manage a full-time ally. We wanted to have to be able to offer them the support as well, and so we wanted to offer the part-time program for those reasons, to kind of broaden the net of who we are working with. And also, the part-time program is also a jumping off point for some of the other ways that we're exploring serving community. As some of you may know, we are an AmeriCorps program, so we are federally funded for this. That allows us to provide benefits to our allies like healthcare, an education award when they complete the program. It allows us to, subsidize part of their stipend and pay them close to a living wage for their service while they're learning and in this apprenticeship. We are looking at ways to grow and how we can create leaders and support the sector that are beyond AmeriCorps, although we do have our funding for the next year or year or two at least. So we are beginning to explore and talk with folks in the community about ways to do that, if that looks like offering some of our amazing training and services for folks who are employed in the sector, who want to gain skills and gain certificates. We're also looking at ways we can, use the model of the team service project that our allies do in different ways with organizations throughout the community. So kind of a if there's a specific project that you want done as an organization, having even potentially our alumni come in or other emerging leaders who are already employed in the sector to be able to support you in your work that way. So we're really having some conversations this summer right now to look at different ways that we can continue to be a pipeline for leadership, to develop new leadership that is from Pittsburgh and from the communities that are being served. to be able to serve Pittsburgh as well. So if you're interested in that and interested in talking more about how we're looking at evolving and changing, to activate the leaders that we have been developing in response to some of the things that are going on. Happy to talk about that as well as talk about the apprenticeship model that has been so successful over the past 30 years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We did have a question from the group regarding the allies skill or the apprentices skill level and how you match that with the organizations.
Sure. I can go ahead and take that, Alyse, or feel free to chime in if I forget anything. So our allies come in, the only requirements for being an ally are a high school diploma. You have to be a US citizen or a green card holder in order to be an ally. And we also do background checks so they don't preclude them from serving. We do have a range of folks who apply. I think as Alyse has mentioned, we have some folks who have advanced degrees to some folks who are maybe a year or two out of school. We have a lot of people who come in who maybe have a couple of years of college, but have taken a break for a variety of reasons. They often will come in with internships or different experiences from college or actual or work experience, professional work experience as well. We pre-screen all of the candidates. They go through both individual interviews as well as group interviews for us to make sure they're a good fit. Once you apply to be a host partner, you will receive a book of all of our candidates before you interview them, and we have a matching fair, which is a full day of interviews. You will be able to interview between 4 and 6 of our candidates. You get to choose who you interview. The candidates also get to choose, so we try to make the matches as best that we can. So you have the opportunity to interview a variety of candidates, and then you make the selections of you rank them and decide who you would want to have placed at your organization. So it really is your decision. We prep the candidates, we pre-screen them. Like I said, we'll also do the background checks. We handle all the HR pieces, we handle payroll, but you do get to choose who becomes your ally.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to double check and see if we have any other questions before we pass it over to Emily.
I had a question. Ed has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I might have missed it, but is there a cost to the organization for hosting an ally?
There is, yes. So as Naomi had mentioned, we do provide a living stipend for our allies. And so we do ask that our partners contribute $21,000 for a full-time ally and $7,500 for a part-time ally.
And that goes directly to the ally to
Yes.
provide them a stipend.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
My question to the allies are, if you could give us a little bit more detail as to how you see allies evolving, given the time of uncertainty we're having, in particular in the nonprofit ecosystem, and how you see the partnerships with organizations and public allies evolving as a result of that. And can you speak a little bit more about the development of the leadership construct that you spoke of? Thank you.
So I think our partnerships, we can't run without all of our partnerships. We work with over 30 organizations every year. As I mentioned, we worked with over 150 organizations in the community. We would continue to have those strong partnerships because we exist to be responsive to community needs. Our model, while we have a national model, we are really about using the assets of the region and focusing on what the region needs. So we would look to our partners to have conversations to see how we could best serve the community. We are looking at, we've been developing leaders for over 30 years. How do we activate the leaderships that we have created, and how do we broaden who we serve beyond allies that would come into an apprenticeship? So that might look like part-time, shorter-term programming that does include both, still includes a hands-on doing actually something relevant in community while being trained. We're looking at different certificates, like we can certify folks in asset-based community development, we can certify folks in results-based analysis that goes along with social impact modeling. We're looking at different certificates that we can provide to the nonprofit sector in terms of training, and looking at potentially, working with folks who may be coming into the sector, who still have that passion and that desire to serve, to get them trained more quickly than they would be able to be trained on their own. And to, ultimately our goal is to have our alumni into leadership positions, into the C-suites, and especially because primarily we're working with folks who are from traditionally underrepresented groups, from marginalized communities, to make sure they have the skills and the access to be able to do that. So those are some of the ways that we're looking to change our model. And I think that activating leadership piece is what we're really exploring beyond AmeriCorps. We love our AmeriCorps partnership because it provides so many things. It's also really exciting to think about what it could look like to not have some of the constraints that go with a federal grant, to be able to really focus on some of the things that we can't do. One big one could be fundraising, but it's also that advocacy piece, and that focus on working directly with the community to make things happen at a local level, that is more around advocacy and than we can be as an AmeriCorps, as a federal grantee. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, because we are still kind of exploring what that could look like, and taking this year to do some planning and analysis of where we're going to go.
Great. Thank you so much. Double check. I don't think we have any more questions. Again, if you would like to fill out the application, we put that in the chat, and I'll also put their website in the chat again. Thank you so much, Naomi and Alyse, for joining us today. And I'm going to pass it over to Emily for our public policy updates.
Thank you, Naomi and Alyse. Is everybody able to hear me okay? Awesome. I am at the Nova Place Concourse on the north side. One, because our new Forbes Funds offices are in Tower 2. For anybody who received the email from Fred a couple weeks ago, yay, very exciting staff update. We're joining a really great community on site here, and I'm really excited to build out a summit that is very parking friendly, but also community engagement friendly. And I think the Nova Place Concourse really gives us both of those things that we've been looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation, and I'm going to start with some ecosystem updates, because we have a fair few from the Forbes Funds team. So first, I want to say thank you to Karen Pratt and Ben Luksak from the Westmoreland Cultural Trust and Adelphi for joining Fred, Adam, and myself on a panel presentation last week at the Equity in Action Summit with PCRG. This was a really necessary conversation about how AI can be regenerative has the potential to be regenerative, but it really does take a lot of effort to make sure that we are centering equity in the conversations that we're having as we're building capacity of organizations. I think there's a lot of times, and all the folks on this call can agree, that, nonprofits are very short on capacity and are also expected to kind of carry the water in a lot of senses. And so AI has been talked about as a way to do more by doing more in a lot of spaces for nonprofits. And this was a very different kind of conversation. And from that, we're going to have some really exciting updates about AI opportunities and resources and benefits for nonprofit members of GPNP in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. And thank you again to our GPNP members in Westmoreland who really jumped in, embraced this, and participated in our last round of cohorts. Coming up on June 26th from 5 to 8 p.m. at First Tee, the Forbes Funds and GPNP are hosting a golf happy hour. This is really intended to be a leadership and golf mixer more than anything. Proceeds from this event will support our transformative leadership cohort overseen by Dr. Hannah Karolak. And this is just a way to reconnect with the Forbes Funds team. We have, like I said, very exciting announcements and a series of events around new office space, Nova Place as a place where we'll be really rooted, in the coming months leading up to the summit, but also getting on the course with folks because TLC is real. I personally can attest to the transformative leadership, capacity building and connections that have come from me personally for those cohorts. So as a first foray into that, don't be shy. Please feel free to join us on the course. Food will be included. There's free on-site parking. And as always, GPNP members get a discount, $10 off the ticket to participate. Our save the dates will be circulating, I believe, in 3 weeks to inboxes and mailboxes. December 4th and 5th in the evening and 6th, full day of events for the summit this year. Like I said, at Nova Place. And this is a celebration of 20 years of GPNP. So the 4th is going to be a gala themed evening focusing on how, nonprofits can't do this work alone, and GPNP has absolutely not done this work alone for the last 20 years. So the 4th is going to be really focusing on who many of the leaders in that space have been. Thank you to philanthropy for supporting this work and really investing in our region. The 5th is going to be nonprofits can't do this alone. And because of GPNP policy and advocacy, we've had a very unique opportunity to partner with elected officials in a way the majority of the nonprofit sector does not often get to. And so the evening of the 5th is going to be focused on a policy roundtable and kind of town hall, looking at the role of, 501c3, 501c4 organizations, but also municipal governance, any elected official from the state, local, or federal level, and how we really do need to come together as a social impact sector beyond the identity of, our types of organizations or the missions that we have, because we're really responding in the moment to the needs of the community, and no one organization can do this alone. So I hope that you're excited or as excited as I am for those upcoming events, but all leading up to the summit. And in case you didn't see, the pictures, because we have this little overlay on our postcard that's going to get mailed to your mailboxes. Here's a look at some of the faces from our last couple of AI cohort demo days, last summit. And if you see yourself there, yay. Thank you so much for joining us for so many of the wonderful in-person Forbes Funds events. And I am going to be releasing this week our second call for speakers. For the summit. We did our first call a couple of weeks ago, and I believe we had 20 responses. We're looking to do between 50 and 60 sessions this summit, and Adam Pulisic, who leads our AI cohorts with us, also is going to be supporting our speaker preparation and making sure that everyone has the resources they need to be successful at Nova Place in December. Looking at why the summit is important, this is a really good visual for how we move from transactional to transformative in our relationships. And so, the typical success metrics for these organizations or for these types of events for organizations is looking at, number of presenters, number of sessions, how many engaged participants, number of minutes, but really the type of data that we're diving into is how many folks choose to stick with this ecosystem because they find value from these events. And of those organizations, how many of them are building their capacity because the Forbes Funds is the only place where they can build that capacity through their GPNP membership. And so it managed to be 66% for both metrics, but normally for GPNP membership, many of our organizations have budgets less than $1 million, and that's about 66% of our members currently. Additionally, 66% of our attendees from the last summit serve communities beyond Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. And so when we're looking at ways to support an ecosystem that is regenerative, that does have equity at the center, that does look for unique opportunities to elevate the voices of organizations that don't typically get that opportunity or invitation without creating it for themselves. The summit is absolutely a place to do that, and I hope you'll take advantage. For our policy update this morning, I did a little bit of a different approach because for sake of brevity, want to make sure that we get through a couple of major headlines that you've absolutely seen in the news, especially over the weekend. So first, protests taking place in LA. We know that there was an invocation of Title 10 to federalize California National Guard troops, citing protests against ICE as acts of rebellion. This is a military enforcement of civilian laws, but it does potentially set a troubling precedent. I feel like we hear that across a lot of different things that are invoked recently for civil liberties on individuals as such, and hearing, you know, what some of the concerns of Californian citizens were. Governor Newsom initiated legal action asserting the deployment is unlawful and unconstitutional. There have been various sources looking at the number of troops that were mobilized or how large the protests were. But it looks to be about 2,000 troops being mobilized, and active duty operations are being considered. I saw a couple of headlines calling into question potentially Marine involvement. This is an ongoing conversation. And so just as a quick highlight for nonprofits and the relevance to our work, this does signal a heightened federal encroachment on civil protests and the ability to have open discourse conversations and exercise our right to protest peacefully. There are different accounts of what peaceful protest looks like depending on the news articles that you're looking for, and so being very careful about, you know, how we're talking about the events that we're hosting, the work that we're doing, and making sure that we're staying grounded in best serving individuals that access services or that we provide resources to is really integral at this part, and being very clear so that cannot be misconstrued. Second, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, court pause. There was a bipartisan energy and clean electricity bill that was being reviewed by state courts, and that is pending and on hold currently because there's a judicial resolution taking place. And so state Supreme Court review for RGGI constitutionality, looking at tax versus regulatory fees, is continuing, but we know that there's a lot of members that are in the green energy, clean energy space, and especially with changes to like Justice 40 funding and other initiatives. I just wanted to highlight a non-funding related conversation because this is something that is in that judicial space and is likely going to postpone funding outside of, you know, budget cuts for energy transition projects, other types of investments, particularly impacting underserved rural and urban areas. And that is an area where a lot of the policy updates that we're providing on these Monday morning calls are shifting to be less, you know, congressional policy oriented and focusing more on executive and judicial policies as well, really highlighting how all these things come together. But for organizations that traditionally participate in advocacy with elected officials that are more in that legislative vein, that's where I hope these Monday conversations are helpful. In response to Lawrence's comment last week, we looked a little bit into voting rights and provisional ballots. So the U.S. Supreme Court did end up declining a GOP appeal that aimed at disallowing provisional ballots, specifically in Pennsylvania, yay for national representation, upholding broader voter inclusion principles. And so this decision of the Supreme Court supports ballot enfranchisement, which hopefully will boost turnout in communities nonprofit groups serve, particularly those who are marginalized by mail-in voting barriers. We know that that is a way many folks participate in our voting system and complete their civic duty that way. And so looking at other ways voting rights may be threatened or the ability to vote becomes more difficult over the next few weeks, we'll add that as a ongoing look at our policy updates on these calls. And then finally, at Job Corps site closures, the federal administration has moved to close Job Corps centers. We're seeing this happening locally. I don't know. Oh, Tiara, I can see your mouse movements on the screen, prompting concern over access to job training or low-income youth. This has been labeled by advocates as an attack on, thank you, urgent equity building programs, and has been called in the media disdain for the poor. There have been thousands of students affected. There are limited state safety nets in place, and there was an alarm raised for nonprofits supporting youth workforce development. Also, an alarm raised that this is a really interesting and particularly negative closure because it does not have a huge impact on the federal budget. And so looking at very targeted programs being closed when they don't have an impact on the federal budget in the way that the waste, fraud, and abuse discourse has been conducted historically or recently is just again another thing of note. And one thing I asked ChatGPT to do, I'll let you weigh in and see if this is accurate, but we've seen a lot of the nonprofit leaders are burnt out and juggling a lot of things at once. A couple of months ago, looking at election coverage, we were seeing our inboxes and news and texts that we were receiving being completely overwhelming. We were getting inundated by policy updates in a way that we never have before as citizens, much less as, nonprofit organizations that are tracking these things. And so this is my, months later update. You're not going crazy. Typically, there's a pretty easy system for, prioritizing specific issues, but looking at, impact of each of these decisions and headlines on the nonprofit sector, potential for disruption for the work that we're doing, at least in local issue areas, and also how much control we have over these decisions that are being made that are impacting and disrupting our work. This is kind of a rating scale where we're looking at from protesting, changes at the judicial level, looking at the way workforce development is shifting. There's just a lot of things on our plates right now. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not crazy. Please feel free to message me and send, areas where you're looking for support or updates. We can wrap those into these Monday calls. That's what this call for community solutions is for, is finding solutions to our collective challenges. And, I'm really excited to continue engaging in this discourse. I also want to take a moment this morning to just kind of reemphasize our commitment to convening, advocating, and building capacity for our nonprofits, particularly those with underrepresented voices, including BIPOC leaders and rural leaders that are part of our ecosystem in Southwest PA. It's an 11-county region. We have a lot of broad and deep relationships in those spaces, and our role is really to make sure that we're elevating unheard voices or underheard voices, facilitating partnerships, and routing people effectively. If there's an area where GPNP is not the expert, I had this conversation with Chris Roslow at the PCRG Summit. And he gets it. He sees, GPNP doesn't have to be the expert on workforce development and community reinvestment. That's where PCRG has a role. Please route folks accordingly that want to be part of those conversations. Providing policy briefings and targeted training. This is where we have a ongoing and long relationship with PANO about how we can better support statewide networks and route folks that are in Southwest PA to statewide resources like their nonprofit helpline, and also advocating for inclusive, equitable policy responses at all levels. Policy responses can sound like, the onus is on elected officials, and in many cases it absolutely is. And we also get to decide how we respond at a local level. We get to decide how we mobilize, how we move forward, how we continue having conversations that are courageous, that are vulnerable, and put other folks at the center. And so to do this, we do need to be agile, informed, and anchored in community-driven leadership. That's where the Forbes Funds really exceeds. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Please continue to participate on these community calls and our public policy committee meetings each month, and bring a friend with you. Send the invitation to somebody who maybe hasn't participated in a little while. We want to make sure that, folks are staying connected and in the know. And I will pause there for my update. I was going to go into the, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, but really at this point, the major update is that it's looking like it's going to be a longer process than anticipated. We were looking at, July 4th as potential presidential approval, but what we're hearing, especially as members of the House of Representatives who did pass this in the House, are reading things about AI moratoriums or, 10 years of not regulating AI technology, which is a huge issue with their constituents. There's a lot of calls for understanding what is in the legislation before it's voted on, and making sure that the members of the Senate are informed about the contents of the bill. And so it's looking like it's going to be pushed a little bit further into August potentially, especially for the Senate vote, House Senate reconciliation, where there's a conference committee that aligns, the House version of the bill, the Senate version of the bill. And again, this is a reconciliation, not the appropriations bill. This is separate than the federal budget or from the federal budget. Just wanted to reiterate those two quick points. And Christine, I'll turn it back over to you to close the call. Oh, please complete the poll.
Thank you so much, Emily. Go ahead. Share this. We're very excited next week to have, well, let's make sure I'm sharing my screen this time. Sorry, guys, it wasn't working earlier. There we go. So yes, next week we're very excited to have President and CEO with Vibrant Pittsburgh, Sabrina Saunders Mosby, and she'll actually be joined by her whole team for the call. We'll hear a little bit more about their partner network and what they're doing and how we can all get involved and collaborate. So definitely join us for that call. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Naomi and Alyse, again for sharing out on Public Allies. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, everyone.